How many outfits does your closet contain? I'm guessing anywhere between 50 and 200. Well, mine has more than 20,000 fashion pieces. And yes, I say this with pride because my closet is co-owned by a community. We share and swap quality fashion that we no longer use with one another. The concept of the shared closet is a solution to shopaholism, a highly addictive condition. I've suffered from being a shopaholic for decades. I'm not sure how many of you resonate with this, but there was a time that mindless shopping sprees were my favorite hobby. I shopped because I could afford it. It was fun. And honestly, I didn't feel like there was a reason not to. And while I wish I was the only one with a relentless appetite for shopping, according to the Singapore Business Review, 70% of Singaporeans are shopaholics. For those of you wondering if you fit the bill, the definition of a shopaholic was based on various consumption behaviors. But what stood out to me was the very thought process that made me a compulsive shopper. Most buying decisions were based on impulse and affordability. How many times have you bought something just because it caught your eye, but you didn't really need or even want it in hindsight, or because it was on sale, so you just bought it and would figure out what to do with it later? I know I've been very guilty of these thoughtless actions. And the sad fact is that this isn't the case just for me or even in our little red dot alone. Shopaholism is contagious globally. It's caused primarily by the overproduction of fashion. Today, the fast fashion industry produces 52 micro-seasons, which means that new clothes are produced every week. This endless cycle of unsustainable production is destroying our ecosystems and depleting our natural resources. Have you ever unbiasedly looked at your wardrobe and realized that you only wear 20% of what you own? The 80% you don't use is a good gauge of our level of overconsumption. And the more we buy, whether we use it or not, the more the industry produces. A side effect of shopaholism is the emergence of a use and throw culture. In Singapore, an equivalent of 150 t-shirts are thrown away per person per year. As clothes get cheaper, we buy more and consider them to be disposable. Now, overproduction might feel like a problem for someone else to solve, but in reality, the solution lies with us. Shopping excessively is a vote with our dollar that favors and encourages these wasteful practices. I'm the first to admit, the sheer temptation of affordable fashion makes it challenging to find a cure for shopaholism. So it was against all odds that I chanced upon one, better known as awareness. A high dose of shame was administered as I learned about the reasons that fashion is the second largest polluting industry globally. I wondered why I didn't know of this fact and how many others did. This led to a speedy recovery process, the aftermath of which was a strong desire to cure shopaholism from its core. So when I discovered the concept of swapping, it took me back to my childhood, when my friends and I would barter or swap toys, and then from my teen years onwards, how girlfriends and I have shared our clothes. After a long time, I was filled with positivity and hope as my mind started brewing ideas. Could there be a way to systemize and scale the concept of sharing fashion? It certainly seemed to check all the boxes of a circular model that could design out waste and keep products in use. And as a ripple effect, it reduces the wasteful use of resources, allowing for the regeneration of natural systems. Looking at my own closet as an example, most of my clothes were barely touched or even noticed. And if the statistics were to be believed, there were millions of fashion enthusiasts just like me with way too many clothes in mint condition, yet never having anything to wear. The solution felt so simple. By circulating fashion that already exists, we could potentially slow down the pace of overproduction, solving the problem from its root. The 80% of our closets that we ignore could become a part of someone else's 20%. It was with this dream that Swopaholic was born, as an effort to cure other shopaholics like me. Now, while the solution felt simple, I very quickly realized that operationally this was not the case. One of our many challenges involved managing and processing large volumes of fashion. I realized why it was the easier option of the industry to burn excess stock. I didn't agree with the unsustainable solution, but became well aware that it was a tall order to find a viable one. Many questions arose, such as how do we quality control, process, catalog, store, manage, and finally dispose of it when it's too damaged for consumption? These are just some of the operational hurdles that we're working through to date. With 4 years of streamlining operations and many more to go, I'm glad to say that a few things do work. Today, Swapaholic's process involves swapping in fashion that's good enough to give a friend, earning points against the value of these items, and then swapping out anything you fancy from our community closet. As Swopaholics have adopted the practice of swapping over the last 4 years, I've learned that the solution has many merits, well beyond my original intention. For one, as a struggling shopaholic, you don't need a fashion quarantine. Swapping is a guilt-free indulgence. You can refresh your style without breaking the bank or our planet. It also gives you an outlet to declutter your impulse purchases and reclaim their value, as opposed to hoarding them endlessly. A swapper once told me that every time she swaps, she feels like she's about to discover a treasure because every piece is one of a kind. This is one of my favorite analogies because it's so true. There is a joy in finding that piece that's just for you. It's a feeling that surpasses that fleeting shopping high, which will hit home with avid shoppers. While studies quantify the benefits, such as every swap reduces the carbon footprint of an item by 82%, I believe swapping is here to stay because it's much more than a statistic. It binds us as a community. Swapping exists for the community, by the community. We are connected to one another by our contributions to this shared closet. The idea is to contribute quality fashion that you don't use but deserves a second chance. This encourages others to participate and repay the generosity by swapping in not just fashion that they consider disposable but valuable fashion that may no longer suit their lifestyle. This respectful exchange is supported by our collective intention of sharing fashion over wasteful buying, hoarding, and disposing. The process brings about a sense of gratification because every swapper is an owner, investor, and contributor, which creates a feeling of true belonging. And this feeling gives way to a sense of pride, which emboldens swappers to share their swap treasures with the world through their various social media platforms. And ever so often, another member will chime in with delight, knowing that their outfit found its way to a loving new home. This genuine exchange of swap stories, as we call them, helps grow the community by enticing other friends and colleagues to want to join, or at least understand more about it. And through our own experiential touchpoints, we hope to provide a welcoming, safe space for this community to express themselves. For example, we've always called our swap events swap parties because they support the forging of connections and celebrate our shared closets, beliefs, and culture. We endeavor to connect with our swappers at a personal level by getting to know them and host them with heartfelt joy. Can you imagine a world where we share a soul-feeding passion to preserve, respect, and care for one another and our resources while looking fashionable? I now can. As you can see, swapping is not just circular when it comes to fashion. We also swap intangible values, such as that of care. And to build a culture of care, we have to start inside out. Something I learned from my grandfather, witnessing him operate the 67-year-old company that he founded. His team refer to themselves as a family, and to this date, act like one. Perhaps having grown up in this environment has made it important to me to consciously weave an ethos of care into the organizational structure. Today, most of our swopaholic family consists of women and single mums in the need of supportive and flexible work. Despite their own difficult circumstances, I'm always amazed at the empathy with which they support one another and our customers. And in turn, our customers reciprocate with patience and kindness. Together with this mindful community, I've learned that there are several actions and habits that we can swap as a remedy for shopaholism, beyond swapping fashion. Awareness has helped me, both as a cure and then a preventive from going down the unconscious path of wasteful shopping ever again. Learning about the shocking state of the industry was enough for me. Just being more aware might do it for you too. I've also discovered that conscious buying involves considering the use of existing resources, which is one of the most effective ways to put an end to overproduction. This hierarchy of needs, designed by Sarah Lazarovic, is an amazing resource I stumbled upon. It very succinctly reminds us to make conscious purchase decisions by contemplating using what we have, borrowing, swapping, thrifting, or making before buying something new. I've observed a shift in how our swopaholic community cares for their fashion. In order to give our clothes the opportunity to live longer, we're reading care labels, washing less, using natural detergents, and even hand washing. This goes a long way in keeping the quality of our fashion intact, so it can be shared in some form or another. How we dispose of our fashion plays a huge part. We don't often look at it this way, but clothes are made up of natural resources. I've personally become so conscious of the fact that tossing usable fashion in the dustbin shows a disregard for our natural environment. And it's mutually beneficial to share, donate, sell, or swap. So why not opt for those alternatives? Through my personal journey of pursuing conscious alternatives, I've come to realize that swapping to me represents much more than swapping fashion. All these actions and habits represent swapping a mindset. When we swap, we first give before we take. And this mindset shift towards becoming a contributor as opposed to a consumer alone is what swapping means to me. I hope you'll join me in taking the first micro action towards a more sustainable planet by simply swapping your mindset.